Just ahead on American Black Journal, a look back at the summer of 1964 when hundreds of volunteers traveled to Mississippi to get blacks registered to vote. We'll talk with two of the men who participated in Freedom Summer. Plus, Detroiters get ready to show their pride at the 8th annual Arise Detroit Neighborhoods Day. We'll have the details next, so stay with us.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. 50 years ago this summer, hundreds of mostly white college students from across the country descended on Mississippi to help register black voters. The crusade was organized by local civil rights groups and was known as Freedom Summer. At the time, Mississippi was one of the country's most segregated states, and the volunteers were met with harassment and violence, which included the murders of 3 workers. Recently, PBS aired a film about Freedom Summer that can now be viewed online at pbs.org. Here's a clip.
I don't want the Negro as I have known him and contacted him during my lifetime to control the making of a law that controls me, to control the government under which I live.
I don't think people understand how violent Mississippi was. If black people try and vote, they can get hurt or killed.
You're not a registered voter, you're not a first-class citizen.
They would say, "You're right, boy. We should be registered to vote." But I ain't going down there to mess with them white people.
We hope to send into Mississippi this summer upwards of 1,000 students from all around the country who will engage in freedom schools, voter registration activities, and open up Mississippi to the country.
We face absolute extinction of all we hold dear. We must be strong enough to crush the enemy.
The 3 civil rights workers who disappeared in Mississippi last Sunday night still have not been heard from.
It was always in the back of everybody's mind that bad things were going to happen. But if you cared about this country and you cared about democracy, then you had to go down.
The Detroit chapter of the National Lawyers Guild sent several members to the 1964 Freedom Summer to provide legal support for the volunteers. I'm pleased to welcome 2 of the attorneys who traveled to Mississippi 50 years ago. Richard Goodman of the Goodman-Callahar Law Firm in Detroit and retired attorney Alan Zemmel. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you, Steve.
Boy, watching that footage, it's really hard to sort of fathom just how violent that summer was, how violent Mississippi was at that time. 50 years is sort of a long time, but it's not that long ago. I mean, there are lots of people around now who would remember that, including you 2 gentlemen.
That's right.
Yeah. So tell me about what it was like when you got to Mississippi in that summer.
Well, just real quickly to put it in context, in 1963 or 4, the Congress and the President enacted the voting rights bill.
65.
65, excuse me. And that was a consequence, one of the consequences of the 1964 summer.
Of the registration.
Yeah, and of course it remained for a long time a cornerstone of voting rights in the South and elsewhere. But the violent summer of '64 led directly to that that law, which I don't think any of us want to forget.
Right.
The atmosphere. We were in various towns and cities throughout the state of Mississippi, and violence was omnipresent. It was everywhere. The suggestion of violence was very much felt in the streets and visible. some of the houses we stayed in with the kids who were doing the actual registration were blown up. I was in one of those houses, not at the time of the explosion, but just afterwards. The kids and the local African-American communities in Mississippi are the real heroes of that period of time. We were there primarily to try and do everything to protect the legal rights and to kind of teach the legal rights that people already had,
right,
and how to exercise them and what the procedures to follow. And the people who were there, you know, involved in the struggle were heroic in terms of just being willing to face the Klan, which, by the way, was very apparent in the streets. Right. And the people who didn't wear the white robes and the hoods and so forth were their brothers in arms. Right. And so you were looking at the sheriff one day, or the deputy sheriff, or the judge even, and you know the same night they go and put on their so it was infiltrated. The Klan had infiltrated the entire legal structure of Mississippi. Right. It was a tremendous influence, hateful influence.
Yeah, Alan, I'm wondering, as a lawyer, you're there to try to assert people's rights or get people to be able to assert their rights, but this is sort of a lawless, you know, as Richard's pointing out, it's sort of a lawless state. I mean, how effective could you even be in that?
Well, interestingly enough, well, first I want to point out that Richard makes the really good point, and that is that the real heroes were the people of Mississippi, who remained there after we left and were there long before we got there, and they had to deal with the consequences. And the mood was terrible. You sensed danger everywhere, even though personally I didn't experience, but it was in the air. And it was an opportunity, I found it to be an opportunity to fulfill some of my goals as an attorney. Right. One of the things, I know this sounds corny to many people, but I was very moved by the oath that I took to be an attorney to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And that meant a great deal and still does. So we had to deal with that kind of situation. I had an interesting experience. I and my partner, Roger Craig, also from this area, we observed voter registration that was led by Stokely Carmichael. Right. And everything was very hush-hush because it was very dangerous. But unfortunately, somehow there was a leak, and we got to this first town, the name of which I can't remember, and there were 6 guys in the courtroom, in the entrance to the courthouse, with blackjacks in their hands, and there was nobody on the street. It was like noon during the middle of the week. No one was on the street, and it was incredibly intimidating. And I told Roger, keep your jacket buttoned, your tie up, and look like an SOB, and maybe they'll think we're from the FBI. And that's exactly what happened. Stokely came in with the voters, and they were very polite to him. They said the registrar is not here, and they sent us to another town. And we went to the other town, and there, as we were driving there, and you have to understand the highways in the Delta are 2 lanes, and nobody speeds. And we were passed coming into that town by a very officious-looking unmarked car, and when we left, that car pulled alongside of us, and the fellow driving it looked like a classic beefy policeman, and he saluted us.
Is that right?
So we knew we had pulled off our subterfuge. We went to the next town, and before just at the entrance to the courthouse, there was a car with its hood up, and 6 guys with baseball bats, apparently fixing the engine. Somebody came out, as we pulled up, somebody came out of the courthouse, must have told them to leave because they all put down the hood of the car and fled. The voters came in and they registered, and we followed them out. And I think we were lucky. The day, by the way, that this happened was the day they found the bodies of the 3 civil rights workers. It was a very moving time.
It strikes me that you know, this was an effort to get black voters registered and get them obviously to vote in Mississippi at a time when the power structure did not want that to happen. I wonder though, as attorneys, do you see some of the things that are going on now with enhanced requirements for voter ID. I mean, some of the arguments that we're having in not so much in Michigan, but certainly in some neighboring states about that. Does that seem to you to be born of the same barrier?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question, because to me it's so ironic, really, that the legal issue was that the center of the struggle in Mississippi was the right to vote.
Vote, sure.
And everybody understood, this right to vote goes the power to make laws and to form, to create the conditions where people can live in peace.
Right.
And that was the underlying whole core of the movement. And today, it was being destroyed by the Klan and in the white robes and so forth.
Right.
Today, we have many of the same things going on in different ways, more subtle and so forth, with people being denied, again, the right to vote, sure. Pretext, subterfuge, voting identification, all these things which are being placed in the way of minority voters and other voters, again, to destroy their democratic rights. This time it's being reinforced not by people in white robes, but by people in black robes.
By judges,
that's
right.
That's really the difference.
Yeah. I agree with what Richard says. There is an underlying message here. Evil never stops. It may be interrupted, it may be impeded, but it's always there. Sure. And you have to be prepared to deal with it. And it takes different forms. People are much more sophisticated now. Violence worked for many, many years.
Right.
Now it's being done legislatively, sure. judicially, but it's still discrimination and subjugation.
Yeah. I tell this story a lot about how recent this all was, and the example I use is that my father was born in 1933 in Mississippi, and as a result of when he was born, he was not able to vote in his home state until he was more than 30 years old, after that Freedom Summer and after the Voting Rights Act. And I always tell that story to say, this is not some distant relative I read about in a book. This is my parent, the first person I knew. So it's really not that long ago that all of this stuff happened.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
I just don't think you can underestimate the evil, as Ellen said, that was involved here. I remember a girl who was in the house I was staying in, a young woman who had been hurt in the explosion, and she broke down during one of the meetings we were having. And I remember her crying and saying, where does the hate come from?
Right.
Why do they hate me?
Right.
And why do they hate everybody?
Right.
And what's the reason for it? But much of that's still there, and it's whether it's aimed at the President of the United States, which a lot of it is.
Which a lot of it is now. Right?
It's still in the streets.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's pervasive, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of different forms. Just before I remembered one of the young men that I met down there was in Greenwood was Silas McGee.
Uh-huh.
And about a week or so after I got back, there was a news report that he was shot. And just recently, I looked up Google, and there was a report written in 2010 by a woman who actually helped take him to the hospital.
Uh-huh.
And it was a very harrowing experience where he was bleeding, and he was brought in, and they couldn't take him because he went to the white entrance.
Because he went to the wrong.
And then they had to move him to the black entrance and call a black doctor in town to look at him. And ultimately, his life was saved. But
that's
scary stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you guys here, and of course, I think the entire community would thank you for what you did 50 years ago.
It was our pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Privilege.
It was a privilege.
Just ahead on American Black Journal, it's the one day of the year when Detroiters across the city unite in a remarkable display of neighborhood spirit. That story's next, right after this look at important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Ken Coleman with a look back at African American life in Detroit. This week in 1964, John J. White, former co-owner of the famed Gotham Hotel, died at age 55. He was awaiting federal trial on gambling charges, including numbers running. In 1963, Love is Like a Heat Wave by Martha Reeves and the Vandellas was released on Motown Records. And in 1962, the Marvelettes' two-sided single, Beechwood 45789 and Someday, Some Way was released on Motown Records. These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African American Life in Detroit.
For the past 8 years, Detroiters have been driving their own rebirth of the city by participating in the annual Arise Detroit Neighborhoods Day. The nonprofit organization brings together community groups, block clubs, churches, and thousands of volunteers who create their own neighborhood activities on the first Saturday in August. The events range from cleanup projects to festivals, health fairs, sporting events, and educational activities. Even houses get built and renovated on Neighborhoods Day. Joining us now is the executive director of Arise Detroit, Luther Keith, along with Sandra Cobb, who is the chief of community development for Habitat for Humanity, which is a longtime participant in Neighborhoods Day. Thanks for being here on
Thanks
American
for having
Electric.
me.
Luther, you're here every year for Neighborhoods
And
Day.
happily so.
This is it's like our anniversary.
It truly is,
right?
and Steve, I want to thank you again. But Detroiters in the neighborhoods have really created something special here. I think it's unique in the nation.
Yeah.
Detroiters themselves have created this day that I call a day of celebration, conversation, and commitment, where people get up, do things as you described. And it's not just a celebration, it's a commitment to making our city better. And this day is really about hope, because all of these people believe we can create a better future. So it's remarkable to see this thing that Luther Keith didn't create it, Arise Detroit didn't create it. People in the neighborhoods of Detroit.
People of Detroit created
exactly,
this, right?
And it's an incredible thing to be part of.
Yeah, well, and it's growing, right? I mean, it gets bigger every year.
Absolutely. The first year we did this, and we didn't know how we could do it. We did 2000. We had about 55 events. The last couple of years, it's been around 200, and it's growing. This year, we're going to be announcing. We have some major partners. We have people coming up from 14 states and Canada working across Detroit during the summer through Neighborhoods Day that we're partnering with suburban groups, churches, just remarkable demonstrations of people's belief in the city. Now, particularly, too, that the focus on Detroit, there's a lot of interest in neighborhoods. We have people discovering Detroit for the first time. We have a lot of people who have never left and continue to believe, and it's great to bring both of them together.
Yeah, yeah. Sandra, I would imagine that because Habitat is involved, that has to do with building houses, which I sort of referenced in the intro, but tell me about that role.
Well, we're really bigger than just building houses.
Right.
Habitat is about building community.
Sure.
And what I love about Arise Detroit and Neighborhoods Day, it's an opportunity to highlight what the residents and community are doing every day in the city of Detroit. We appreciate it, and unfortunately, it's not highlighted, in the news and in media as much as it could be.
Sure.
So, but you have people who live Detroit, who are committed to Detroit and a revitalization of Detroit every day.
Yeah.
And so this is just a fun time for us to come together and say, hey, we're here, we've been here, this is what we do because we believe in the city of Detroit, and Habitat is privileged to be a part of it.
Yeah, very good. Tell me what you're hearing. I know you are in touch with people in the neighborhoods, not just on this day, but throughout the year. What are you hearing from people in the neighborhoods about where the city is headed? What are they saying about the new mayor?
It's interesting. A lot of people are asking me that question. I was just asked that just the other day by a news person, believe it or not. I actually think that there is a almost palpable sense of hope in this community, and I like to stay out of politics.
Right.
So, but I think it's very clear that the new leadership with the mayor, he's tapped into something. He's just tapped into it. He's been able to demonstrate some real change that we're able to see. The lights going on and some of the other issues that are going on. And even with the bankruptcy, how do you feel about that? I think we're at a time in Detroit for a perfect storm of change. That's what's happening in Detroit right now. And people have tapped into that. And as they see these signs of change, they want to be part of it. And so I really do feel that you've got a long way to go, a lot of struggles that still need to be, that we still have to undertake. But people want to engage. I can tell you one thing. I went to Mackinac Policy Conference as you did. Steve, I've been up there several times. This is the first time where people didn't want to just listen. They said, what can we do? Sure. How can we get involved? In a way that wasn't there before. So I really sense that we're at a time of real change is happening, and it's great to be part of it and see the hope in these people in the neighborhoods. My issue is that there's still such a demand for stuff. There's so many neighborhoods that need work, and so we've tapped into some of that, but we try to pull together the resources from our sponsors to provide resources to people in the neighborhoods, because that's what they need to do some of this. We know the city can't do it all, so we try to make this day not just a day where people get up and do things, where we can bring resources to the table to assist them as well.
Right, right. You've got to be hearing that people want to do more in Detroit than they used to, and
Absolutely.
are looking for the opportunity. I feel like everybody's all charged up about, okay, well, let's do something, but finding that right opportunity and sort of targeting it is.
Well, there's so many agencies. Habitat is just one of the community groups in the city of Detroit doing great things for the communities and for the residents. And something that Luther said, the residents in Detroit know that they are the solution to what we need in the city of Detroit.
Yeah.
And there's no one sitting around waiting for someone to come rescue us. Right. The residents realize we have to do it, and they're doing it every day. So
yeah.
They're out there doing community cleanups. We're involved with, of course, housing, Habitat for Humanity, dealing with vacant property, rehabbing, new construction. And there are a lot of corporate partners out there who are engaged and want to make investment in the city of Detroit. There are faith groups out there who are saying, what's our role? How do we show that we care about the city of Detroit? And they're doing it. They're doing it every day.
One of the things, too, that we have with our website at risedetroit.org, that, in real time, you can see Neighborhoods Day grow. I think this morning we have over 150 organizations, businesses, block clubs that are already on board. Actually, you can go on our website and see what is happening where, and if you want to volunteer, make a direct contact, and we have many groups that are doing that right now. So there's a way to do that, come in and actually be involved. We're going to have students from University of Detroit Mercy involved, Wayne State University, a lot of young people, Denby High School. It's going to showcase the amazing thing, the depth all across this city of people, large and small, black and white, are coming together to be part of this day.
Yeah. Talk to me about some of the events that people might participate in.
Well, of course, we have a lot of groups. Even though neighborhoods, I had to remind our media people, it's not just a cleanup day, but a lot of groups, the physical look of the city is important. That's why with all the emphasis on black. So we have many, many groups that are going to be doing a cleanup of their neighborhoods, cleanup of parks, those type of things, beautification projects. We also are looking for people out there. We have at least 21 Detroit public schools that we have up for adoption, where companies can adopt these schools for beautification projects now. That's exactly right. Chrysler Group has already adopted 2 schools already. Last year we did 12 schools. So if you have a community group or organization, you want a project, these are ready-made projects. Bring resources, bring volunteers, come and get the schools ready for the fall.
So is this like painting in the schools?
Painting, it could be painting, it could be beautification around the school, a lot of different things. Some they have up together wish lists. Some are pretty ambitious, but they're looking for help because again, the resources are at a premium here. So that's one of the things that we're doing, and some little nuggets of things over at the Detroit Science Center. We have actually the Detroit Public Library and the Science Center and Museum of African American History are all involved in Neighborhoods Day. But what's unique about the Science Center, Tanya Matthews over there, is they're putting together a project where kids can create their own neighborhoods with real materials, where you can come to the Science Center and kind of create a neighborhood, which I think is really unique. We have another group called Heal Detroit. They're doing a march, anti-crime march. One group is starting at 7 Mile and Van Dyke. One group is starting at 7 Mile in Greenfield. They're going to meet at Palmer Park for a whole rally. So a lot of different things. We have a wonderful woman named Hollywood Johnson, who the Hollywood Golf Tournament, Hollywood Golf Institute, who for years has helped urban kids get scholarships playing golf. She's going to have a youth golf tournament, which she always does, but she's got 20 kids from Harlem, New York, coming as well to be part of this. So it's a smorgasbord of incredible things all over the city. Did you know there's a new college in Detroit called Grace College, a new liberal arts college called Grace College on the west side of Detroit? They're having an open house to announce themselves to the city that day. Really? And what's Neighborhoods Day has become like a magnet for positive things of all kinds. It's like attracting it, so people look to be involved. They connect with this day because they know they're being part of some positive. I was telling someone yesterday, I had a group from Saginaw, drove down to hear about Arise Detroit and Neighborhoods Day, and they said, how have you been able to do this? Well, we have tapped into, Steve, we've tapped into a feeling of hope, and that there are little pockets of hope, but what Neighborhoods Day, it connects the dots
Sews it
on
all
the
together.
pockets.
Sure.
Exactly. And people want to be part of that. Someone in Southwest Detroit wants to know there's someone on the east side doing something, or the north end. And this day allows you to be connected. So you are not in this
that's one of
battle
our big
by
problems.
yourself. Exactly.
It's such a big city, and it's, it's so disconnected in some ways.
Exactly. So Neighborhoods Day, you are not in this by yourself. There's somebody like a Sandra Cobb on the west side of Detroit also doing things. And so it's the beauty to be able to see this day. And my frustration with this day, quite frankly, is there's so much stuff going on that you can't, see it
get to all of it, right?
But it's really an incredible thing. And my thing is that I want Detroiters, even the nation, to recognize we always celebrate things that are uniquely Detroit, Motown Museum. We should celebrate this day. This is a day, it was not ordained by the city, by the mayor, by the state, or the president. The people in the neighborhoods created this incredible day and have made it what it is. So again, it's a great thing to be part of, and we're looking forward to it. Because it says a great thing about the heart and soul of this city.
Yeah, well, that's a great testament to it. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that I always think this is a great example of. You are a great example of how one person can go off and start their own thing, and it becomes this great community effort. So,
well, it's only because God has been good to me and a lot of people in the community. So thank you all for that, and thank you again for Steve for giving us that time. And I want to say that success has not changed. You seem like the same great guy you were before.
I'm trying to. That's right. Thank you guys for being here.
All righty.
That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org. And as always, connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time on American Black Journal.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.